Hi guys, hope you're doing well. I just wanted to make a quick video on why I think that INFJs really need Nietzsche's philosophy, that they can really benefit from Nietzsche's philosophy. And I'm going to give you some clues as to why I think that, why INFJ emancipation can really be supported and helped and promoted and fostered by some engagement with the works of Nietzsche. So if you want to stick around to hear more about why I think that, maybe I can convince you and you'll start reading Nietzsche tonight, you never know. Well then, in the meantime, don't forget I've written a book on the INFJ personality, The Ecstatic Soul, which is available at the links below. If you haven't got a copy, get it now. There's a sequel coming out probably in a couple of weeks. At least no more than that, I think. So, stay tuned. The sequel is much awaited, I hope. When will you know the title? God only knows. I've also written a novel called The Infinite Castle in 2022, which the rumor has it the main character is an INFJ, and it's existential, it's modern, it's classic kind of, or not classic. How would I describe it? It's more Dostoevsky and Kafka and modernist, I guess, It's full of angst, but also the main character, like I said, it's an exploration in fiction of the INFJ type. So get a copy if you haven't yet, and there's my Patreon page that you can support. The link is below. The Patreon page is not doing the best it has in its existence, so I'm trying to think of how to redress that. So relying on your generosity is one aspect, of course, but if you've any suggestions as to what I could be doing, knowing that I have a full-time job and I can't be spending, like 10 hours a week on Patreon either. Something that's kind of effective and maybe can re-stimulate the channel a bit. Anyway, so to move on to Nietzsche, I like the idea of this video because of how counterintuitive it's going to be to some of you, because Nietzsche's widely seen as an INTJ, he's widely seen as an extreme individualist. You can be quite heartless, you could advocate for strange, extreme things, and provocateur and all that, and it doesn't seem like a very INFJ thing, and so I expected some of you to be incredulous before you clicked on this link, but remember what I was saying in my last video, namely the one on INFJ pandering. You don't always want to tell INFJs, well, here's this prophet that you're probably like, or whatever. Sometimes you need to kind of be counterintuitive and challenge your audience and make them see things that they wouldn't have considered otherwise. When you stay in your comfort zone for too long, you ossify, you stultify. I don't know why I only have pretentious words to use here to illustrate, but you know what I mean. You wilt. Is that less pretentious? Yeah, I think so. It's kind of a flower metaphor, I guess. So, Nietzsche. There's a debate that I start. Actually, I don't start it because it's not true. It's inaccurate that I'm starting it. Some people are already advocating for the possibility that Nietzsche was INFJ, and I have discussed this on my channel before. I extend and expand on this point a little bit in my more than a little bit in my new book. So stick around for that too. Regardless, I think the fact that there is a slightly broadening trend, widening trend towards seeing Nietzsche as an INFJ of a certain very peculiar sort, certainly. I'm not saying Nietzsche was a very orthodox or commonplace INFJ or ordinary INFJ, far from that. But, there is a trend. It exists, but it's a mini trend, and it's not big enough to displace what must still be considered the broad consensus around INFJ, Nietzsche being INTJ. So I just want to say that from the get-go, but it's not really going to affect what I'm going to say, because what I'm going to say doesn't really necessarily have to do with Nietzsche being INFJ or INTJ. It does have something to do with Nietzsche being NI dominant, which is something that, in fact, by comparison, is completely accepted on both sides. In fact, if you think about it, if you have mostly two camps, Nietzsche, INTJ, 95% of people, Nietzsche, INFJ, 5% of people, well, naturally, it's like nearly 99.5% of people thinking he's at least NI dominant, and that's what I want to emphasize. Because, as you've probably noticed, like in the last few months, I've really been emphasizing how liberating your relationship to introverted intuition is a crucial part of your spiritual well-being, something that goes way beyond pure material well-being, social well-being, economic well-being. Your relationship to your source, in some sense, is your relationship to introverted intuition. There's something deeply existential about this, something that's felt very like at the phenomenological level here. The more you restrain yourself, and the more you act in un-NI ways, or you repress your NI function, because usually for purposes of social belonging, being accepted by others, getting on in the workplace or other places, you make these compromises. You think they're compromises, so you do a bit of repression of your unique NI-ness, if you want to call it that, but the payoff is that you're accepted by other people more. In fact, that itself is an illusion, because people actually know when someone is not being completely honest, sincere, and superficial, and when they're being a bit superficial, which is what you would be doing, even if it's not conscious, when you're repressing your main function, right? Or the full breadth, the full scope of your main function. There's a strangeness that comes with introverted intuition, which is why it's the function of metaphor. People who speak in metaphor are people that will come across as a little odds to other people who love the transparency of Western reason. Spivak once said, I never thought I would quote Spivak before. Well, actually, it's Terry Eagleton through Spivak, quoting Spivak. But anyway, the beauty of Nietzsche's work is that you take the entirety of Nietzsche's corpus of books. He talks about a lot of things, and he knows philosophers really, really well. But obviously the range of his thought extends much beyond that. Of course, philosophy, spirit, religion, science, health, politics, ethics, very strongly in ethics, aesthetics. The only thing that Nietzsche doesn't touch really is logic, as far as I can tell, and that's not a big loss, at least for him. He is very eloquent, as you know, which has the force of being exhilarating to the reader. Right? But what's exhilarating is double. There's the style that he's such a great writer. It's the display of what unbound NI can do. When you let it go, like I'm a big fan now of talking about INFJs as meaning-making beings, and that's what their destiny is, to the extent that INFJs have a destiny, is to produce meanings, human meanings. And Nietzsche just exemplifies that, is saturated with it throughout his entire corpus. But in addition to exemplifying this unhindered display of multi-dimensional fireworks style introverted intuition, just think of thus speaks Zarathustra, he is also heavily, and I would argue in an FE way, but again, this is not the majority view, he's very heavily involved, in some sense, in pushing for the liberation of this use of NI in other people. Now, he doesn't put it like this, of course, and he doesn't refer to languages or anything of the sort. But the fact of the matter is that when you read him, and when you see that he encourages the revaluation of all values, that if I were to take a shortcut, truth is a mobile army of metaphors, that a man has to contend with his own value-making system, that the best life is a life lived in the grand style, as he calls it, that he sees a very strong connection between ethics and aesthetics, and that the good man is always, in some sense, someone who is also aesthetically connected. A good man or the good woman, Nietzsche doesn't speak much about. He's not always very nice to women. So this is something about his thought that we have to move beyond. But nevertheless, this kind of unity between expression, ethical position, aesthetic position, this promotion of the constant making of new meanings, kind of coming out of yourself, you know, this resistance of old and rigid external systems, of law, of morality, of anything that is just learned by rote or because it's authoritative. All this suspicion that he encourages people to have and to prioritize like their own sort of developing life as a work of art. You don't have to take everything literally in what he's saying, but there's something very unapologetically NISE in this. NISE because the two introvert and the two perceiving poles are really present in his work somehow. But, you know, and NI doesn't always, always come with SE somewhere, you know, so. But the fact that he's so unapologetically promoting it can be really exhilarating to the INFJ reader who's struggling himself or herself to go about doing the same expressing of their NI because they feel this pressure from outside. Reading Nietzsche can really make you feel empowered to contend with the outside and assert your own individuality. And it's not about promoting the individuality of your egoism here. It's about promoting the individuality of your strange view of the world filtered through introverted intuition, which is your worldview and your worldview type. Regardless of what you might think, one of your strengths is that you come with a worldview. Holistic beings. Other types have other strengths, but you come with this kind of wide-ranging view in both time and space. And it's colored by the hue of your particular relationship to introvert intuition, that is to the archetypes and so on. So if that functions unhindered, you can be spiritually satisfied. If it does not, because you're repressing it, you will not be spiritually satisfied. And you not being spiritually satisfied means that there won't be an adequate enough compensation to what might otherwise be economic satisfaction, financial satisfaction, social satisfaction, physical satisfaction. All these ticked boxes won't suffice if they are offset by spiritual starvation. Spiritual starvation can itself be conquered by the expansive and unapologetic promotion of the fruits of your introverted intuition. The current world, current society tends to repress that, tends to circumscribe that, tends to wall that in, break those walls with Nietzsche. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and if you've experienced reading Nietzsche and if you've had similar reactions and thoughts that I've had. Really curious about, what you have to say. Share in the comments, and I will see you at the weekend, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.